Audrey Hepburn. Charming. Elegant, stylish, the big hat, the diamonds, the long cigarette holder, all of it is undeniably iconic. I'm just not sure if it adds up to a good movie. Audrey Hepburn as Holly Golightly is sort of the prototypical manic pixie dream girl. She's erratic, she's stupid, she's frivolous, she's callous with other people's feelings. But gosh darn it, isn't she cute and quirky? She keeps ballet shoes in the refrigerator. She keeps her telephone in a suitcase. That's not where those things go. Holly Golightly is a free spirit. She won't be tied down. At the same time, she dreams of the finer things in life. She throws swinging parties with the New York high life. She window shops at Tiffany's. She gravitates towards wealthy men. Holly Golightly is just as her name implies. She flitters through life, powered by sheer charm and magnetism. But then one day, a struggling writer named Paul moves into Holly's apartment building. Paul, like so many others, is drawn to Holly like a moth to a flame. Does he have what it takes to woo this wild and willful woman? Is Paul what Holly has been looking for in all her carefree cosmopolitan gallivanting? Will Mr. Yuniyoshi ever get a good night's sleep? These questions and more in Breakfast at Tiffany's. You know, I think a good romance works just the same as a good suspense film. Chungking Express is a film that does this real well, that takes this concept and sort of makes it literal. I did a video about it. I'll put the link in the little thing on above in the corner here. The point is, you should be on pins and needles waiting to see if the two parties in a romance are going to get together or not. A good romance should give you a sense that each person is the missing piece of the other. A good romance might be messy, it might end in tragedy, but even still it should be relatable. I didn't really feel any of that with Breakfast at Tiffany's. I think part of the problem is that George Peppard as Paul is sort of underdeveloped. His main function throughout the film is just to be sort of hopelessly enchanted by Audrey Hepburn's madcap antics. For instance, one of Holly Golightly's charming personality quirks is that she just wants to marry a guy for money.
I'd marry you for your money in a minute. Would you marry me for my money?
In a minute.
That's sort of one of her main ambitions, is just to marry a rich guy who she's not really into. And you never really get a sense of, what is it about Paul that makes him so willing to overlook so many obvious red flags, other than the fact that it's Audrey Hepburn. This is a guy who throughout the film, his pride is sort of wounded. He's a writer who's sort of in the doldrums, but he's also kind of subsisting off of this rich woman. He's basically kind of a gigolo.
Miss Golightly? Mrs. Phelanson, my decorator.
He's being used as a gigolo by this wealthy woman. And he says towards the end, he's used to other people sort of looking after him or taking care of him, and he just wants to take care of somebody else. And, he recognizes that Holly Golightly is flighty and erratic. That I understand. That part is relatable. But, again, a good romance should give you a sense of two people coming together to fulfill something that they couldn't have on their own. Each satisfies something the other is looking for. Whereas with Holly Golightly in Breakfast at Tiffany's, it sort of seems like it might be fun at first, but after a while, I don't know. Holly Golightly is so erratic and so frivolous throughout the majority of the film that even her romantic union with Paul at the end, it just seems like another sort of erratic outburst, which could be fine. A good romance can end on a note of uncertainty. You think of The Graduate, there's sort of a sense of unease, a sense of uncertainty at the end, but there's not really any of that in Breakfast at Tiffany's. They get together, they kiss in the rain, the music swells. I think that's sort of what doesn't really work for me about the film, is there's this sort of disconnect between the sort of dramatic reality of the characters and the sort of overall tone of the film, where there's these sort of pieces of a more sort of messy, less than cathartic romance, but it's slathered over with this veneer of schmaltz. I think a missing element is sort of lust, attraction, desire. There are so many times when Audrey Hepburn as Holly Golightly is just sort of throwing herself at George Peppard, and he just reacts, very coolly, very debonair. Whereas, I imagine how a character like Jack Lemmon might react. You imagine a Jack Lemmon film where he reacts very sort of like a ooga ooga. I think there needed to be a more sort of outward, carnal attraction going on. I know that she's Audrey Hepburn and she's not really supposed to inspire the same sort of auga, hubba hubba type reaction that a Marilyn Monroe might inspire, but I think it would have gone a long way to show Paul's humanity, to show just how attracted he is to this person. Showing a character expressing a desire, it doesn't have to weaken the romance. It wouldn't mean that Paul has any less feeling for Holly. You know, desire is a very sort of relatable expression of romance, and without it, I think Paul often comes across as too detached, too aloof. Reading about the novella by Truman Capote and how much was changed in the film version, it sort of crystallizes a lot of the problems that I have with the movie. For instance, in the novella, the Paul character is the narrator, which sort of explains why he's so sidelined in the film, why he feels so thin as a character. Another thing is that Holly Golightly in the novel is a bit younger. She's 18 or 19, whereas Audrey Hepburn was about 30 at the time she made the film. It makes a lot more sense for an 18 or 19-year-old to be acting the way that Holly Golightly does than it does a 30-year-old. The most important difference seems to be that there is no real happy ending at the end of the novella. There's no Hollywood happy ending where Paul and Holly end up together. And I think that sort of gets to the heart of why a lot of the film doesn't quite work. Is again, you've got the nuts and bolts of a sort of character study of Holly Golightly. You've got the stuff from Truman Capote's novella, and all that really works. But then you've got this sort of love story grafted onto it, and it never quite coalesces, I don't think. Okay, Mickey Rooney as the Japanese landlord. You can't talk about Breakfast at Tiffany's without mentioning Mickey Rooney. You know, it doesn't bother me specifically, but I do remember liking this movie years ago, and when I did like the movie, I would look at Mickey Rooney's performance as sort of an aberration, sort of an ill-advised of its time decision in an otherwise good movie. But having rewatched the film and having a much less enthused reaction to the film as a whole, Mickey Rooney as the Japanese landlord seems more sort of emblematic of an overall, again, frivolity. Frivolity was sort of my key takeaway from the movie. Like, again, I know it's Holly Golightly is supposed to be a frivolous character, but also the film as a whole felt just sort of frivolous and dumb to me, and the Mickey Rooney as a Japanese landlord seems sort of emblematic of that. You know, it's not a bad movie necessarily. It's not unenjoyable to watch, but I think sort of the most you get out of Breakfast at Tiffany's is sort of, again, very sort of surface level. You watch the movie because Audrey Hepburn is real pretty and she's quirky and she wears cool clothes, but I'm not sure that there's much to it beyond that. The film is iconic and it stands out in the culture, but I'm not sure it stands out for anything that has to do with, you know, good storytelling or deep characterization. There's Moon River. Moon River is a good song. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say about that. Breakfast at Tiffany's. Whatever. Let me know what you think. Subscribe if so inclined. I write books if you like books. Okay. Goodbye.